Last thing I want to talk about before we get to the Q&A, and that's I want to talk about the Japanese pair, the men's doubles pair, Hoki and Kobayashi. Those two finally, after 2 years, over 2 years, are back atop the podium. It was actually their first final in almost a year. But yeah, no, I did say, if you remember, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember which breakdown it was in, but it was one of the ones around the summer period. I think it was around the Southeast Asian tour, the Malaysian Masters, Thailand Open, Singapore Open, that Indonesian Open, that kind of period. I can remember watching them play and thinking, these two are playing well. They're not winning. They weren't getting really deep into tournaments, but the way they were playing, and every time I watched them every week, they were getting that little bit better. I was like, these two are playing well. Don't rule these two out. They can definitely come back. They can definitely win more titles. And obviously, they've gone and won the Denmark Open. I think someone actually asked me recently on one of these, do you think Hoki and Kobayashi will actually win a title this year based on that you keep saying that they are getting better? And I didn't answer that question, but I remember thinking, yeah, I think they can. And here we are. And I think one huge thing I want to say before we get into how they played in specific matches, again, I want to focus more on the semis and the finals, is I think some huge credit has to go to Lee Wan Wah, who's a former fantastic player from Malaysia. And I'm not quite sure how long he's been in Japan. It's not been too long, but I think his influence on the Japanese team, on the men's doubles squad, has been good, not just with Hoki and Kobayashi. They are struggling a little bit with some other pairs, but I think he's doing really good work. And one thing I was really impressed with, again, I'm not quite sure how long he's been in Japan, but he's doing the coaching in Japanese. We've seen other Malaysian coaches go to Japan and they stick to with the broken English, obviously the English that the players can understand. But the fact that Lee Wan Wah is conversing, I'm not quite sure how good it is. Japanese viewers, you can kind of tell me is Japanese up to scratch, but he's able to clearly converse and get a message across in Japanese. So that's obviously some credit towards him. So yeah, no, like I said, very well deserved. They beat some great pairs with huge wins in the semi-final. That huge win in the semi-final of Ranki Reddy, because that was a pair they hadn't beaten in six years. I know there'll be a lot of people, my Indian fans will go, well, that's just Ranki and Shetty. I got loads of questions again. What's it going to take for those two to they've been in semi-finals and they've been obviously before this they've been in 2 or 3 consecutive finals. What's going to take them to get a title? I'm not going to answer that question because I want to focus on Hoki and Kobayashi. But I know we're going to get fans that will kind of put it into the fact that Ranki Reddy didn't play particularly well. I would argue that and say no, I thought they did. I just thought that the way that the Japanese played was absolutely phenomenal. In that semi-final, the one thing that really stood out to me, there's some other ones that I'll quickly list, but for me, in the Ranki Reddy quarterfinal, where they played the new Indonesian pair of Ardianto and Ramat Hidyat, who I actually think they're a new pair. They're quite exciting. But one thing that went against the Indonesians was when they were below the tape. This happened quite a lot in the service situation. If they were in a slightly below tape, they were too often would try to hit hard. And the Indians are very organised. Again, I think that's from their time with Matthias Bo, because he was very good at this with his partner, Carsten Mogensen, is you'd push down and then you'd want them to try and go flat for you and you just cover both channels. And the Indians are so good in that situation. And Ardianto and Ramat, if they played soft or kind of push through and try to hit it at the Indians' feet in those situations, they were very successful, but too often they got wrapped up into that situation playing too fast. And that was one thing that the Japanese did slightly better, was they were able to, when they're in situations, they were changing, like doing little angle changes or the soft pushes, that little more. They still got caught in that trap, of course. There's a reason the Indians do it, because they're able to kind of get players to kind of react in that way naturally under that kind of pressure. But I felt that the Japanese, in those situations, if they were below tape, played soft. They played the gaps. They were willing to sometimes go over the top, because Indians sometimes they press and they come up. And there is space to go over them. Although, obviously, if you don't get the right length, it's quite dangerous because they both have phenomenal attack and both really tall and powerful. But for me, that's one thing that I felt that Hoki and Kobayashi did really, really well. Obviously, there were some other things. I felt that the Japanese did win the service situation. And this rolls over a little bit into the final as well. But obviously, Yugo Kobayashi's smash in his attack, his steepness on his attack and his variation, especially like around the head, like cross smash like this. Absolutely amazing. I thought Takuro Hoki was back to his best at the front. He's always been a really good front court player, but he was really willing. The one negative about them in the past, sometimes he's a little bit hesitant. Like there's something that just holding him back from really going at it, and he was willing to do that a little bit more. I think what helped him is that Kobayashi, I know he's had his injury issues and now he's obviously back to full fitness. He's picking up some of those duties. He's a little bit more moving around the back. So Hoki can actually push up and have a little more faith that anything that goes over him, Kobayashi can attack pretty much anything. Whereas maybe when Kobayashi was having some issues with his knee that he's had or was on the comeback, he hesitated because maybe he was trying to help out. I don't know. But whatever the reason was, Hoki was pushing up the court and was taking on that absolutely amazing. That was really obviously winning the net a lot, and that was setting up, like I said, that monstrous attack from Yugo Kobayashi. And then in the final, I think actually they were able to do they were using a similar tactic. I actually thought that the final might be quite difficult for Hoki and Kobayashi because I felt that one thing they were doing quite well, like I said, the soft pushes and like changing the angles, because obviously Alfian and Fikri are both very good frontcourt players. I thought they might be able to obviously not only beat Hoki at the net and really kind of control that area, but if they were trying to in defense, like push flat through and all that kind of stuff, that the speed of the Indonesians at the net might kind of get them into trouble. But they were able to obviously deal with that. What I felt they did a little bit differently in the final was, especially as the match got further away, because it was obviously incredibly tight, is we, rather than just like kind of like basic like this, like boom or this, they were almost hold and then were changing the angles a lot more. They got a bit more confident in like little delays and changing the angles, and you could see their confidence growing as the match went on and on and on. Yeah, no, another thing I felt that the Japanese did well, like I said, they were using those soft plays from a slightly worse position, but they were also, I think, at the crucial stages in the third, they were focusing on maintaining their balance and, like I said, some subtle change. That's it, subtle change of direction. That's the kind of stuff that I've already mentioned. But I think, really, if you had to summarize Hoki and Kobayashi, is we know how good they are. They've been in 2 world finals. They've been world champions. They've won other tournaments. I remember their run in the Bali bubble and how well they were playing in that period of time. And they've got their set formations, they've got what works, but obviously to be effective, it's got to be all flowing. And in this tournament, it was definitely all flowing. Like I said, little situations like the defensive one with Kobayashi blocking and then shifting, with Hoki coming forward, Hoki always pushing up, Kobayashi with the subtle changes, both of them having that confidence and calmness under like when the shutter's coming faster than just to lay it into the gap, to lay it soft at their opponent's feet, taking some of the speed out when they're not in a good position, maintaining their balance. Everything was all really, really good. Okay, so yeah, no, like I said, what a fantastic win for them. It's great to see them back on top of the podium, and I hope this gives them confidence. If they can stay injury free, then again, they could be a pair. I think they've just got themselves back into the world top 10. Be interesting to see if they can push up any higher and get back up into like the world top 5, kind of the position where they're more than capable of being.